Hello, 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 and welcome. I am Shane Moore, aka the Texorcist, and I welcome you to tonight's episode. We will be discussing in depth parapsychology, the government projects that are classified, and millions of dollars of taxpayer money have gone into studying these different topics, if you will, such as telepathy, dreaming, lucid dreaming, PSI dreaming, a lot to do with consciousness, the power of consciousness, the power of the human mind, parapsychology. And parapsychology deals with precognition, remote viewing, and many different things such as that. Things that are topics that are often ridiculed and not really studied mainstream, or not really supported mainstream. We're talking telekinesis, mind over matter, ESP, extrasensory perception, and many more things. But tonight we're going to really, focus on the remote viewing, telepathy, and hypnosis, because that's a very big part of what the government projects have dealt with. They've studied, they've researched, and as I said, they put millions of dollars into this. Now, there are some topics that I will be the first to say I don't. I'm not saying that I don't believe, but I'm saying that there's a lot of room for doubt because of let's say tricksters, and some are very, very good. And my hat is off to the amazing Randy for really exposing these guys and girls that they have a good time making people believe that they're something that they're not, that they have, certain powers that they don't have. And these are people that were in the 60s and the late 70s, or 60s and 70s. Think of having someone like Chris Angel in the 1960s, in the late 60s and 70s, and how they would just turn the world upside down. I mean, they would have people believing things that simply was just a trick. That's all. And as far as it being actual science, no. Would I like to believe that? Would I like for it to be true? Of course. I think everyone would. We all have a certain fascination with magic and with the wanting to believe, as the X-Files so often says. But the truth is there were many that tricked even the best. But the amazing Randy, very, very hard to trick him, and I don't believe he was ever duped. Matter of fact, he outed a lot of them. And if you get a chance, go to YouTube and watch the amazing Randy do what he does best. And it is, he, catches these people cheating, and it is entertaining, to say the least, to see them getting caught because they claim that they can speak to the dead and speak to loved ones and all this, taking advantage of people, which I have no use for anyone that does that takes advantage of anyone in any way. So, I'm going to take a short break. When I come back, we will get into this, and tonight we will also have a live interactive time where we will attempt remote viewing, telepathy, and more. So buckle your seatbelts and clear your mind and relax, and let's have a good time. And please take part in the live chat. I promise I am not going to trace your name. I'm not going to trace your IP address. I'm not going to do anything but just encourage you to have a good time and participate. So, with that being said, I'm going to take a short break, and I will be back in 3 minutes, and we will get started.
Won't you sing out your frustration? Just say a word. Keep on staring at the pavement. God knows who hurt. Ooh, your mind is a ghost town, echoing inside your walls, 5 feet underground now. Nothing's gonna save us from our doubts. Nothing's gonna make us spell it out. I don't wanna be the one who said, oh, I told you so. And even if the sky was falling down, you never noticed anyone around. I don't wanna be the one who said, oh, I told you so. But I told you so. Keep on acting out like strangers. Scream out loud. I will go if nothing changes. So change your heart. Ooh, your mind is a ghost town, echoing inside your walls, 5 feet underground now. Nothing's gonna save us from our doubts. Nothing's gonna make us spell it out. I don't wanna be the one who said, oh, I told you so. But I told you so. My kingdom on lockdown. You never give me any chance. Watch me on my way out. Nothing's gonna save us from our doubts. Nothing's told you so.
And I am back. Well, I hope all of you had a very good weekend. Rested up. After all, tomorrow is Monday, a dreaded Monday. But it doesn't have to be that bad. You can possibly learn some parapsychology to deal with those manic Mondays. How about that? Anyway, I just want to address one thing about my previous episodes on the no-hide laws, Zionism, and those topics. I just want everyone to know that I am not racist. I do not hate the Jewish people. I don't hate anyone. However, I am against anyone and everyone who views themselves as superior and abuses and uses and takes advantage of and harms and even murders those who they see as inferior to themselves. Now, since I did those episodes, I think it was the last 3 that I did, I have received hate mail messages that some with language that you won't find on the Harvard temperament test. I mean, it goes above and beyond hatred. I mean, it's people are calling me racist, a Nazi, and that I should die, that I should burn in hell. Hey, that's fine, that's fine. But I just want people to know that I do not hate anyone. But I am against any type of extreme racism. I'm against extremists, those that force their belief system onto others, those that take freedom away from others, those that enslave others, those that are for genocide of a certain people, a certain group, a certain race, people who have a certain belief. That is wrong, and I will speak against it till hell freezes over. That's not going to change. And all of your threats, you Zionists and lackeys that blindly follow, you believe everything you're told. If the major media reports it, you believe it. If your politicians tell you, then it's gospel. You believe it. And I've also been accused of being religious, and people telling me to take my religion and Listen, this is not about religion. This is not about religion at all. This is about right and wrong. This is about a certain group of people who are being ethnically cleansed, so to speak, genocide happening, and nobody is saying anything about it. Horrible, horrible conditions, horrible, horrible abuses, and it doesn't stop there. And those of you that are in the know, you know what I'm talking about, you know who I'm talking about, and I'll keep talking. So, having said that, I just want to say that I will not be silent. I'm always for the underdog. I'm always for the downtrodden. I'm always for the oppressed. And I'm against those who bully and torture and needlessly harm and intimidate those who are afraid to fight back or simply cannot fight back. That's what I have to say, and now we'll move on. Thank you for giving me that time to explain that. Anyway, okay. What does parapsychology mean to you? Have you ever had an instance of precognition, of remote viewing, where you see something happening in real time, such as maybe in another city, another part of the world? Doesn't, it can be anywhere. And better yet, how do you explain that? Is the better question. Well, there's really no way that you can explain that in rational, logical terms. I mean, it's just impossible, because it doesn't make sense. But in parapsychology, that's exactly where it makes sense, is the remote viewing, the telepathy, the mind over matter, aka telekinesis, the knowing something that that you would not normally know by conventional means. So, parapsychology deals with phenomena like precognition, remote viewing, telepathy, mind-matter interaction. They all fall under extrasensory perception, ESP. Now, these have been studied. There is no reason why these topics should not be studied openly within the mainstream. Why is it that they are ridiculed in the realm of everyday life, but have been studied at the highest levels of government for decades with high amounts of success and credibility? The U.S. Stanford University STARGATE Project is one of many examples that confirm parapsychology's legitimacy. What exactly is this? Where does it come from? What is its origin? Is it human consciousness? Is it the human mind? Is the human consciousness something, two separate things? Or do they work in tandem? Does it come from empty space? After all, atoms are 99.99% empty space. But even empty space is something. Even empty space is something. It's not nothing. It's actually not empty at all. It's very, very active. And on the subatomic level, it's very violent. So my personal belief is that all of these extrasensory perception, these parapsychological phenomena, all come from quantum entanglement. And I believe that we are all connected to some degree. Every one of us. Before the World Wide Web, before the internet, there was the, I guess you'd call it the predecessor to the internet, predecessor to Ethernet, whatever you want to call it. And the mystics and the saints and the spiritual giants of old, they tapped into that. They knew how to tap into that, and that's why that they were called and highly esteemed. That's why people looked to them for advice, spiritual advice, because it was spot on. But why is it that they were so spot on? Well, it would be like having a computer to where you can just log on. But it's also like a radio, different frequencies. And I'm convinced that each one of us, each human, has a unique biofrequency. And that's pretty much proven. I mean, Tesla said to think of everything in terms of vibration and frequency. It's all about frequency. And you have your own biological frequency, and I have mine. And so-and-so has theirs, and she has hers, and he has his. It is a matter of tuning into each frequency, and when you do, it is a process of doing what? Resonating. You form resonance with that frequency. And when you do that, you begin to pick up information and different things that person is feeling and has and possibly knows, and vice versa. So that makes sense. That would take place. If there's resonance, then it makes sense that would take place, because it's not just you picking and choosing what you want. It's you actually resonating or becoming one with that person. And when you do, you would learn about that person, and if that person was open and knew how to adjust their frequency, or I guess tuning, so to speak, then they could also read you. Now there's many people that say, well, yes, if you wanted them to, which is that's true also. I think that is very true. You would be in control of what was read or whatever about yourself, or what was released, or let's hope so. It would be pretty scary if that wasn't the case. But what would you call someone who could tap into your database, into your knowledge, and your information, your thoughts? Well, how about hacker? And like I have said, and I'll say it again, call me crazy, but I believe that we live in a simulation. I believe that this is a computer simulated reality. I am going along with Elon Musk, going along with many others who say that the chance of us living in base reality, aka the real world, is like 1 in a billion. It just simply is not true. It's just this is not the real world. This is not the base reality. So it's anything but, if you ask me. And how do I know that? Well, I can't prove it, but I'm going to say I know it, because you can't prove it. You cannot prove it while you are in the simulation. Another thing is with these, studies, is people say, well, you're crazy, and that's just that's stupid, or and don't talk about that foolishness anymore. That that's just a crock. People often do that when they're afraid, when something scares them. And people that I've talked to and explained in detail why I believe that we are living in a simulation, they don't want to hear anymore. They don't want to talk about it anymore. They don't want to hear it. That's just too far out. I'm crazy, and I very well possibly could be. I'm not going to doubt that. I'm not going to say I'm not. All crazy people say they're not crazy, right? So, I'm going to say there's a chance I am, but sometimes even crazy people are right, correct? So, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Now, to this topic at hand. Okay. There is, let's see. There's a gentleman by the name of Dale Graff, Graff, a physicist and former director of the U.S. government Stanford remote viewing program, shares his knowledge about dreaming and how we can all experience what he calls PSI, or parapsychological dreaming. We will talk about how much our governments and black budget programs have discovered within these realms, and how much is known, and why are they keeping it secret? I mean, if there's nothing there, if it's just craziness, why are they keeping it secret? Seems strange to me they would keep it secret if there was nothing there. And, but as it turns out, there's a lot there. The most astonishing fact about studies within the realm of parapsychology, from now on I'm just going to use PSI, is that they are often shunned by the mainstream media, and this comes despite the fact that they have extremely high amounts of credibility within the realms of academia. Yeah, it's like someone brings up anything on major news media, or, you know, they're speaking and they say something about precognition, telepathy, or anything like that, and they're immediately laughed at. And, you know, don't listen to this guy. This is another Alex Jones. This is another, this is another psycho that, another gullible. No, I'm not gullible, anything but. And I'm not even saying that I believe all of this. I'll tell you what I believe, and I'll tell you what I don't believe. So I have no problem with that. It says parapsychology deals with phenomena like cognition, remote viewing, telepathy, mind-matter interaction, and more that fall under the label of extrasensory perception, ESP. And the truth is, there is no reason why these topics should not be studied openly within the mainstream. And I agree. I mean, people can laugh as much as they want, but these topics need to be studied. And even Tesla said, when you stop studying the things that are seen, and you start studying the things that are unseen, that are not seen, he says, then you will make advances. You will make progress. Right now, people have confused motion for progress. Yeah, it's like the cartoon character that's running, and all they're doing is they're digging a hole. They're making a lot of motion, but they're not going anywhere. But they think because they're making all this motion that they're making progress, and they're wrong. What they need to do is they need to realize what they're doing. They're running in place, they're digging a hole, and they need to get that knowledge, that stepping stones to lift themselves up out of that hole that they've dug for themselves, because it just gets deeper and deeper. These programs are usually run and are funded by the black budget. Have you ever wondered where billions, if not trillions, of our tax dollars are going? And don't pull the, well, we just lost it, or it's just it just disappeared, or Johnny was in charge of it, and he dropped the ball. No, that doesn't happen. That does not happen with billions and trillions of dollars. So, Dr. Jessica Utz, the chair of the Department of Statistics at the University of California, Irvine, makes a great point on the show Talking Points. She further emphasizes this point. What convinced me was just the evidence, the accumulating evidence as I worked in this field, and I got to see more and more of the evidence. I visited the laboratories even beyond where I was working to see what they were doing, and I could see that they had really tight controls. And so I got convinced by the good science that I saw being done. And in fact, I will say as studying statistics, I've consulted in a lot of different areas of science, and the methodology, the controls on these experiments are tighter than any other area of science where I've worked. Based on all of my research into this field of parapsychology, the information seems to be shunned away from in the mainstream academia simply because it has an association with superstition, spirituality, metaphysics, and magic. Well, I don't see a problem with it being in spirituality. I mean, that kind of goes hand in hand, you know. So I don't really see a problem there. But, you know, you start talking about superstition, metaphysics, or magic, people, yeah, they're going to take a step back. This alone, no matter how strong the evidence and how significant the results when studied in a scientific setting, instantly have closed-minded non-believers yell out pseudoscience. There is instant condemnation without investigation, and sometimes protecting against this protecting sometimes seems more important than encouraging scientific exploration or protecting protecting freedom. But this may be changing, said Cassandra Veaton, PhD and President and CEO at the Institute of Noetic Sciences. It goes on to talk about Dale Graff. Graff is a physicist and lifelong investigator of the PSI phenomena, specializing in a variety of extrasensory perception. Topics include remote viewing and pre-cognitive dreaming. Now, how many of you have had a pre-cognitive dream where you dream something and it happens in real life exactly the way you dreamed it? Maybe deja vu, maybe, you know, something short, maybe an event, a big event, like someone being hurt, maybe someone being elected, maybe someone being killed. And with that being said, I want to say, just take 30 seconds of silence for Kobe Bryant and his daughter. God bless them that died today in a helicopter crash, and we'll just do that now. Okay. Yes, that was very, very tragic and very, very heartbreaking, and I just it just reminds us that we're not promised tomorrow. We're not promised the next second. And God bless Kobe Bryant family and those closest to him. It's truly a very, very sad time. So anyway, okay, back to the remote viewing and the background. Dale Graff has a scientific background in the aerospace industries and in technical intelligence assignments for the Department of Defense. He was also a director of the Stargate program mentioned above from 1990 to 1993. Now, if you're not familiar with the Stargate program, I would suggest that you read about it. Google it or look up books on it. The Stargate program, very, very interesting. We're talking being supposedly able to travel in time to certain places where you could take part in actual events. You could talk with people such as soldiers. This is in the this was during that time. The late 80s, early 90s, or possibly the early 80s, when you had Project Grill Flame, and it was, hey Nazreen, glad you joined. One's a lonely number. But it was literally, it was written that you could go and you could see that person, even though they were deceased, but you could see that person, and you could talk with that person as they were dying, and so it would be a type of time travel. And the way that it was discussed or explained was that that it was like Velcro, like the sound of Velcro when the person left their body, so to speak, their spirit or their soul left their body and went to this this time or place. And yes, it was described as the tearing of Velcro, and I found that very interesting because I have heard that sound before, and I never knew what it was when I would be sleeping, and this didn't happen all the time. This was rare. Happened maybe 3 or 4 times, but and I really didn't remember much. Some I did, some I didn't. But yeah, so then you had Joe Joe McMoneagle. I'm sorry, I probably hatched that, but he was part of the remote viewing, and you had Skip Atwater. They were the very best of the best, and they were very, very good at what they did. Now, remote viewing is giving someone an envelope that has nothing on it but just coordinates, and that person, that remote viewer, they must go into the remote viewing with no preconceived notions. They're not looking for anything. They're just there to absorb information and location and draw what they see. Not so much write words, but draw what they see. And it's quite something. I mean, it really is. And there's classes now with those who teach remote viewing. The proponents of remote viewing, the original proponents were Russell Targ and Harold Puthoff. And this was made public in 1970. One of the most famous of all remote viewers was Ingo Swann. Now, Ingo Swann is supposedly, he remote viewed the dark side of the moon, different planets, and I know it sounds completely insane, and it may be, but he there's nothing that is time and space does not matter as far as remote viewing. I mean, there's no limit on what can be done or what can be accessed. Now you have this guy. Let's see. He was on Art Bell a lot. What was his name? Colonel. No, not Colonel. Wait just a second. I will get his name. But anyway, they said one flew north, one flew west, one flew over the cuckoo's nest, and that would be the guy that, I'm trying to think of his name, but anyway, he supposedly remote viewed Lucifer, which is a misnomer right there, because Lucifer is a mistranslation in the Bible. It's simply a mistranslation, so it's not even the correct name. So, and it's not a name. It's loose, fair, which means light bringer or light bearer. It's not a name. So he said he remote viewed Lucifer and remote viewed Satan, and he was never the same after remote viewing Satan. Well, if Satan is in fact a real being that you can remote view, well, I would be disappointed if one was the same after remote viewing Satan. So, and I'm not being funny. I really would. I mean, it would be like, okay, well, there's really nothing to it then, But he said that, and blah blah blah. But who knows? I mean, the things that he said about the dark side of the moon, and about different planets, that there were questions about the different planets that were still unknown. I believe he was pretty spot on about what he saw, about what he picked up. But remote viewing is a mental faculty that allows a person to describe or give details about a target that is inaccessible to the normal senses due to distance or time. It says you were born with second sight. Accessing non-local information about a place, person, or event is an ability you can cultivate. Learn to remote view. And they place a picture, or they place an image into a manila envelope face down and say absolutely nothing about what's inside to you. You'll view them one at a time, getting feedback after each session from the face down target at the top of the pile. And it says to quiet your mind and basically clear your mind. Like I said, no preconceived ideas or what it might be. And I've done it before with success. Not that I didn't have failure. I mean, yes, I failed, but I also did pretty well. So anyway, so it is basically the extension of your consciousness. And you don't necessarily see as you see with your eyes. You see more like shapes, you see more like energy than actual sight. So anyway, it's called RV for short, and it's also called the CIA's Art of Psychic Travel. Now, Art Bell, on his talk show, he had so many remote viewers on there that it was very interesting. It's too bad that we don't have more on the live chat, or we could do some remote viewing test or attempt to, but anyway, telepathy. How many of you have you know what's taking place? You know, you're just in sync with another person. It's you can communicate with another person by thoughts or ideas beyond the five, senses. You just know that you know, and that's that. when you can read your sister's thoughts without her saying a word, that's an example of telepathy. When you know what someone's going to do before they do it, that's also another example of telepathy, although it can also be precognition. But where do these things come from? Where do these abilities come from? Where does the foreknowledge of an event, especially foreknowledge of a paranormal kind, come from? Okay, Nazarene, you say, I have a question. Is telepathy related to intuition? Yes, I guess that you could say that it is, but it would be intuition, a very, very heightened, extremely heightened type of intuition. It's like empathy, and one that is basically called an Adetecker. Their level of empathy is off the charts. They can assume the viewpoint, or they can take on the action. They can actually feel, see everything through the eyes of another person, even if it's very horrific, horrible, and that's due to the very, very heightened, off the charts level of empathy. So I would say that mental telepathy is related to a very heightened intuition. It's basically, it's all mental. It's all consciousness. So yes, I would say that it is, but it's again, it's like intuition on steroids. It's very specific. It's not broad. It's not generalized. It's very, very specific. That goes with intuition, clairvoyance, empathy. These, it's all of these things. There is also telepathic intuition, which is compared to telepathy. The concepts or the meaning of intuition are more frequently voiced. It's a more distinct knowing, and you know it to such a level that's why that it's more frequently voiced, is because you know that you know, and you're not afraid to speak it. So it's it's but with intuition, there are no real images in our minds like some people have with clairvoyance. They sometimes see things, or they see things happen like they're watching a movie. Sometimes it's just a few seconds. Sometimes it's more. Sometimes it's a loop. It just loops and reloops. But with intuition, there's no real images like there is in clairvoyance or telepathy. Anyway, but there again, I believe that that even telekinesis, it all comes from the same place. It all comes from consciousness. Is what I believe. And when someone's child is trapped under a bus or some car or whatever, and they lift the car off of the child, people are like, how did you do that? And they can't tell you. Well, that's a form of telekinesis. How they did it is they didn't think about it. They didn't think, okay, here's a 2-ton bus I'm going to have to lift off of my granddaughter to save her life. They didn't even think. They just moved it, just lifted it. Now how does that make sense? Well, it can only make sense if by their observation they make it real, because there again, atoms are 99.99% empty space. It's not to say that there's a lot going on in there, but they are empty. Not much for solidity or for actually being what we would call real or material, much less a 2-ton bus. So if the observer makes it real, if everything is a possibility until the one observing it locks onto it, and then the waves, the possibilities, the probabilities become fact, or become the waves become a particle, and the other waves crash, then the way the person lifts the bus off of the child is that they don't even observe the bus. If they don't observe the bus, then it's really not there, is it? In relativity, in quantum, physics, Einstein basically said that the double slit experiment, he said there's no experiment that can be performed that can be uncompromised. He said it's going to be compromised every time. And they said, why is that? And he said, because the observer affects the outcome. He says, by your consciousness, by you observing it, you create the outcome. Why is that? Because when you observe it, you change it. Your consciousness changes it. I'll take that a step further. it's like your couch or wall or I don't know, chair or whatever. When you're not looking at it, it's really not there. It's there in a wave form, but it's actually not there until you turn around and you observe it, and then those waves, that empty space of those atoms, solidifies, and it becomes real. It becomes real in this dimension. If you stepped out of this dimension, nothing would be real. But it's real only in this dimension because your consciousness makes it real. Outside of this dimension, like I said, nothing's real because we are confined to this dimension, to the rules of this dimension, and that's one of the rules. That's why that even if we were living in a simulation, which I really believe we are, it can never be proven. It can never be proved that we are. Why? Because every test that we would run, every thing that we would do would be governed by the system we're in, by the program we're in. There would be parameters that would be put in place. It's just like a computer game, especially the ones now, the very advanced computer games. What happens when you're playing it and you suddenly turn around fast? What do you see? You see a void, you see blackness, and then you see the pixels rapidly fill in where you're looking. Now, that's a prime example of what I'm talking about as far as the couch or whatever. When you're not looking at it, is it there? It's as a probability and possibility, but until you turn around and look at it and observe it, it's really not there. Now, take that and apply that to the video games, where they're finding more and more proof that when you get right down to it, to the subatomic level, that what is and they're saying more and more it's pixels. No kidding. I mean, really. Look it up. Look up reality, pixel created reality. Look up Dr. James Gates and the code that he discovered when he had spent years and years. He's spent 40 years studying string theory, and what he found was remarkable. Is that that there are codes, computer codes, that are embedded in the very fabric of reality itself, and that led him to just be very, very shocked, and as I believe anybody in his case would be. He said there was a panel of theoretical physicists, string theory experts, quantum physicists, and he said he told Neil deGrasse Tyson, he says Neil asked him, he says what is the deal? He says, what is the big, what shocked you so much? And he said, at the very basis, he said, as small as you can go, he said, in the very nature of reality itself, he said, I found computer code. He said, just like the code that would drive your browser. He said, not exactly. He says, but in a very advanced form. And he said it would be like the Shannon codes from the 1940s, named after Claude Shannon, the computer genius. And so he said they were literal codes that were embedded, but also were part of reality itself. So that's true, and it seems like it very much is. Then remote viewing, telepathy, precognition, extrasensory perception is nothing more than knowing how to move around in the matrix, in the computer simulated program. And that's what he said. He said, I never thought, he said, that after 40 years of working in string theory, that I would find myself living in the matrix. And Neil deGrasse Tyson says, oh man, he says, I have got to go home. He said, this is just too much. And he says, did you just say that? And he said, yes. He says, I did. He said, I'm serious. He said, it is amazing. Well, what's really amazing is, if you ask me, as far as this goes, all of this, precognition, remote viewing, knowing things that you have no way of knowing, seeing things that you have no way of seeing, traveling places in your spirit, your soul, whatever you want to call it, could only be explained if this was in fact a simulation. And that's what I'm saying, is that's my theory. I'm not asking anyone to believe it. I'm just saying that's my theory. That's the only thing that makes sense, is if this is a simulation, then of course it would make sense, because you would be part of the game. Well, not game. You would be part of the simulation. You'd be part of the program. Only you wouldn't know it. You would be an avatar, and you just wouldn't realize it. And that's what is so amazing, is you have the famous mystics and the saints, and those spiritual powers, powerhouses, Buddha, Jesus, all these different people. And what did they teach? What did they say? you are not your body. You are spirit. You are, you are not your body having a spiritual experience. You are a spirit having a bodily experience. What's an avatar? Well, it would be that would be an apt definition. You are having a bodily experience. You are having the experience of an avatar. And to what degree you're in charge of, if you want to talk about free will and everything, that's a whole nother show. It's a whole nother episode. But you have to wonder, how much free will does an avatar have? Well, I believe it's very, very limited. Very limited. But this also can be explained, could be explained by genetic memory, the memory that that we have passed down through our genetics, and I firmly believe that. I think that that's where many of our dreams and some of our ideas, I think that comes from genetic memory. So that's something else to keep in mind. But anyway, well, I've gone on for almost an hour and a half, so I'm going to call it a night. Thank you, Nazreen, for being here and taking part. And those of you that would like to get in contact with me may do so by email. You can email me at the Texorcist Live. The Texorcist Podcast at gmail.com, and check out our Facebook page, and also our Facebook group, and the website at Radio Republic. Just do a Google search and it'll come right up. And anyway, yes, send me an email if you have any show ideas. I would be interested in talking to you, and maybe you would like to share your own personal experience or what you've been through. Anyway, love and light to you all. Love you all. Good night from Texas. See you time.